Hello and welcome. The title of the message today will be Four Beasts from the Sea. But let's begin by affirming together our opening statement. There is only one presence and one power in my life and the universe, God. I invite you now just to take a deep breath with me and release it and relax into this moment. Perhaps opening yourself to Holy Spirit, the teacher within, as we ask for divine wisdom and understanding so that we may bring in these ideas, divine will, so we can make the choice of which idea we need to put to use in our life, and divine strength to follow through as we walk through the trials and joys of our life. And so it is. So, four beasts from the sea. Last week I shared with you a dream, and I explained how dreams can come from the mundane things in our life, where we just process with the things that are happening. They also can come from the conditions where we're asleep. Say our foot gets tangled in the sheet and it causes a response in our brain. But also dreams can come from our higher self. They can come from God speaking to and through us. And I shared one of those dreams with you last week, and I'd like to share another this week. The difference is this one comes from Scripture. It comes from the book of Daniel. And you'll find it in chapter 7, and I'll read the very beginning of it where he relates this dream to us. It is a little bit longer than my normal Bible passage, so please bear with me. But since it is about monsters, beasts coming from the sea, and it is the Halloween season, perhaps it's appropriate. And I thought about paraphrasing it, but I couldn't do justice to the words that Daniel uses as he describes this dream. I'll be reading from the George Lambsa translation from the ancient Eastern texts, from the language Aramaic that Jesus spoke. So here we go with Daniel chapter 7, and I'll begin with halfway through verse 1. Daniel saw a dream and the visions of his head as he lay upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matter. Daniel spoke and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven stirred up the great sea, and four great beasts came up out of the sea, differing one from another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till its wings were plucked off, and it rose up from the ground and stood upon its feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And the second beast was like a bear, and it stood up on one side, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth, like big teeth, like a saber-toothed tiger. 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And they said thus to it, Arise, devour much flesh. After these things I beheld, and lo, another beast. So now the third beast, like a leopard, which had upon its sides 4 wings. 4 wings of a fowl. And the beast also had 4 heads. And dominion was given to it. After these things, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and mighty, and exceedingly strong, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and broke in pieces, and stamped the residue with its feet. And it was different from all the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns. And I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before which 3 of the first horns were plucked up from before it. And behold, in this horn were eyes, like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Then I beheld, and lo, thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days did sit. His garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like a fiery flame, and its wheels were like burning fire. A stream of fire issued and came forth from before him. 1,000 thousands ministered to him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judge was seated, and the books were opened. I beheld, and lo, the beast was slain, and its body destroyed and given to the burning flame. As for the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like a son of man came before the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him before him. And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all the peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom is one that shall not be destroyed. Now, all this talk of beasts and Halloween makes me think of a joke. You know, the monsters in the closets are pretty much hipsters. And you know why? Because they've been coming out of the closet since before it was cool. Okay, that might not be so good. There was this man, and he was having nightmares, and he was getting afraid at night because he knew there was a witch under his bed. So he went to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist told him that for 6 sessions of $250 each, he could help get rid of this fear that he had. And later on, I don't know, a few weeks later, the man encountered this same psychiatrist in a bar. And the psychiatrist asked him, "How was it going?" So obviously the man didn't contract with the psychiatrist. There was a lot of money for him. So when they saw each other in the bar, the psychiatrist asked him how it was going with his fear and with this witch under his bed. And the man said, "Well, right here in this very bar, I met a woman who said that she could help me deal with this fear for a bottle of whiskey." And so I did. And the psychiatrist was very curious. What did she do for you? He said, "She cut off the posts under my bed. She cut off the legs of my bed." So what does this say? She cut off the legs of the bed. What does this say that the psychiatrist could help him deal with these visions of this monster? These monsters, the same as the 4 beasts, this monster that this man is having is a symptom. It's our unconscious mind or our subconscious mind trying to communicate with us that we've got some stuff hidden there that we're not dealing with. Something is lying in our shadow self. That's a term that Carl Jung brought to psychology. And it's these repressed memories, experiences. It's these patterns that are in our neural network, in our consciousness. They've been put there as we grew. Most of them began to be formed when we were children. But because they're repressed, they jump out and they take dominion over us, like that 4th beast. And they say things, they do things that are out of character for us. And if we continue to repress them, denying that they're there, they continue to take dominion over us. But what do we have to do? We have to cut those legs off the bed so there's no room for this anymore. Or like the psychiatrist would do, we shine the light on it. We admit that they're there. We recognize them. They're not all bad. Remember the three beasts, all that happened to them is their dominion was taken away. And we have help. Who is our help? The Ancient of Days is our help. The one that's sitting on that fiery throne. The one that all of those other voices in our head, the thousands upon thousands, the 10,000s, that's all of those other parts of our consciousness, you might say, our many personalities that already have given their dominion to the Ancient of Days. The Ancient of Days is the I Am in us. That's God speaking to and through us. That higher part of ourself, the source of this vision that Daniel's given us, came from his I Am, from his Ancient of Days. And I say his because each one of us has a relationship, our own relationship to the same God. Because there is only one presence and one power. So it's the same God no matter what we call it. So how do we deal with these beasts? We shine that brilliant light of the Ancient of Days, of our I Am, onto that beast. We don't deny that it's there. We admit that those things are there, and at one time they were useful to us as we were dealing with life itself, as we were growing up. But those things no longer serve us. We can use the welcoming practice, giving it a funny name. As we feel the constriction that comes on us as we deal with these beasts, represented to us in this dream by the four beasts, three of which are useful, one of which just has to go. And how do we do this killing? By shining the light on it. It's not a violent act. In fact, it's an act of acceptance. It's an act of love. I see this neural pattern. It was useful to me when it was created, but I no longer need it. In compassion, I let you go. And every time it comes back, we use this same sort of prayer. You are not the truth of me, so there's our denial. You are not the truth of me. You no longer serve me. The I Am in me is going to be the dominion over my consciousness. All of these other parts of me, these other beasts, are going to serve the I Am in me. And remember that last part, because what happens, this one like a son of man. Son of man is a translation from the Aramaic that just simply means human being. One like a human being. People ask me, why do you wear this cross? What's this funny cross that you wear all the time? This Tau cross. It is a symbol of that human being, that Son of Man that comes as we begin to deal with these things with the help of our I Am. And remember, what's the characteristics of it? It has dominion, and this dominion is everlasting. And it's over all of these other personalities, and it doesn't leave us. That is when we realize our full potential as a spiritual being having a human experience. We no longer forget that we're a spiritual being. We no longer forget that I Am consciousness, and it has become that in us that has dominion. And now we are that Son of Man. Jesus realized this. That's why he used the actual phrase Son of Man, which was coming from this book of Daniel, from this same vision. People didn't understand it in his time. Some of them did, but their voice wasn't as loud as the other voices that have come down to us. Let's explore shining the light, taking those bedposts out from underneath our bed so that there is no room for these beasts anymore. They're going to keep coming out of the closet, and some of them are useful. We will allow them in our life, in our experience, as long as they don't take dominion from that I am consciousness, the Ancient of Days, who is helping us to realize our full potential as a spiritual being having a human experience. I invite you to watch your body, because your body is the only thing that you have that can keep up with the speed of emotions that come upon us as these patterns from our growing up, our childhood, this stuff in our shadow comes upon us. These emotions are triggered so fast that our intellect, our mind, our brain cannot keep up, has no chance. It is our bodies that can give us this awareness so that we can deal with it in a moment. And remember from a couple of weeks ago where I talked about mental digestion. We can deal with these impressions that come on us and trigger these neural pathways later, chewing our cud like the cows, like the sheep. We can digest this later. That's okay. Have compassion with yourself. We are growing in this together. We have the help of that I am consciousness, God speaking to and through us. And our destiny, each one of us, is to remember that relationship with God always. And it's a process. We are growing in it together. I thank you. And I'd like to share with you the prayer for protection, which is something that you can use as a tool to help remember this truth about this constant presence of the I am in our life. If you remember it, pray it with me. If not, just prayerfully hear these words. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever I am, God is. Thank you for joining me today.